Hello and welcome everyone to AppTech Talks, where we speak with industry leaders on what's trending in the ecosystem and what we need to look forward to in 2022. Today, we have with us Vishwadeep Bajaj, who is the Chief Executive Officer at ValueFirst, which is a Twilio company. Vish has 30 years of experience in the IT and telecom industry. He has held corporate roles in CMC India, Siemens, and 0800 Freedom UK before plunging into the world of entrepreneurship with ValueFirst. ValueFirst is a Cpaas company, which is communication platform as a service. Welcome, Vish. It's great to have you at AppTech Talks.
Likewise. Thank you for hosting me, and I look forward to my interaction with you.
Awesome. So, Vish, one of the first things that I was reading about ValueFirst and I spoke with your team about is that this is a Cpaas company, communication platform as a service. And my first question was, what does this really mean? In layman terms, really, none of the tech stuff.
Yeah. So as ValueFirst, we have been in this business of Cpaas. And like you mentioned, it's a communication platform as a service. So essentially, communication is a universal need, pretty much all across brands, whether they belong to FMCG, retail, e-commerce. They need to communicate with their consumers, with their suppliers, their employees, and so on. So what we do is we provide platforms to our customers, which are these brands, to be able to do so. So we provide them platforms to talk to their consumers, for example, over telecom channels such as voice and SMS, and likewise internet channels like WhatsApp, email, chatbots, and so on. So essentially, Cpaas is a framework or environment where the customer or a brand can integrate their applications such as CRM, core banking, or whatever application they may be running uh, with the platform and then make communication happen. For example, any bank, when you withdraw money from an ATM, you would perhaps get an OTP or a balance confirmation. So that OTP is generated from the core banking platform. So the core banking platform is integrated with the Cpaas platform. So that is what we mean by Cpaas, that we help our customers connect with their consumers over telecom and internet channels.
Fantastic. I think absolute need of the hour with the lockdowns and the COVID. We really don't know how to, really connect with someone. And these are the kind of platforms that are so important right now. So, and I know that a lot of brands that I'm speaking to are currently investing very, very heavily in Cpaas. Yes. So from the horse's mouth, Vishwadeep, when as a brand, I invest in a Cpaas tech stack, or I'm working with a Cpaas partner, what are the things that a brand should really bear in mind while setting up such a partnership?
Sure. I think the first and foremost, which comes to my mind, top of my mind recall, is the quality of service. Because you really want to ensure as a brand that the communication which you want to make with your consumer happens in the way you want. For example, like I was giving you this example of OTP. So OTP must deliver pretty much immediately so that the transaction which is linked with the OTP happens in time. So the message should be delivered with a certain kind of latency. That means it cannot be delayed. So that is one key aspect. And also you should know in some way or form that the message has been delivered. So there is that confirmation which you would require that my communication has happened. And of course, there are many moving parts, whether it is telecom based communication or internet based. So you would want, there should be enough redundancy failover. So for example, let's say you are wanting to send a SMS to a consumer who is, say, on Airtel as their provider. But if there is a network issue or something in a particular mobile operator, even then the SMS should get delivered. So a Cpaas player must provide all these redundancies and business continuity options to the brand. So that is very important. And also, because you are dealing with data of consumers, privacy and confidentiality, these are very, very important. So security of data is something which the decision maker must look for.
Sure. I think two very important points. Whenever you're doing a bank transaction, you need to make that as frictionless as possible. I know many a times I've waited for an OTP for a while, and that gives you a couple of mini heart attacks.
Yes.
And so, yeah, latency, relevancy, data, safety, and privacy are supremely important. So tell me, that is on the OTP and the SMS piece. Another very important piece when it comes to communication, and that's been around for a while, is email marketing. While it does look like a fuddy-duddy, it is one of the most important and effective solutions for a brand that needs to communicate with its end user. How have you seen this evolve over a period of time? And what are the latest tech pieces that brands can really adopt here?
Yes. So in fact, email, like you said, has been around for a long time, but it is a medium which is very, very relevant. And especially with its capability to take rich media, attachments, documents. So there is no other channel. Now, of course, with the WhatsApp, you can start doing that. But in general, if you want to send, say, policy documents, bank statements, all of that. So it is pretty critical to use email. And what we have seen is that when we entered this space, we realized that the brands did not have email addresses or email databases of their customers. So for example, we service one large insurance company of the country. They had the just normal residential addresses of their consumers. They did not have their mobile numbers. They did not have their email addresses. And of course, people got mobiles first and emails later, because a lot of internet revolution or adoption actually happened because of mobile. So we are a mobile internet country, as we all know. So in that context, what we saw, that brands were able to build their mobile number or contact databases first, but the email databases took a long time to be built. Because imagine this insurance company I was giving you an example of. So they had to reach out to their existing policy holders. Please give your email address, give your email address. And it's not easy to get this one piece of information from the consumer. Because you would communicate and nobody would bother to respond. So essentially it took a long time. Pretty much any company you can think of to build a clean quality database, it has taken a long time. Now that that is work in progress. And also, if you see things like Facebook, for example, particularly, it brought people on internet. And then because they wanted to use Facebook, they came on internet. And then for the first time, they created their email address and so on. So in some way, India has got the consumers on email much later than rest of the world. So that is why this lag between the technology being there, the platform being there, but because the databases were not there, so the medium did not evolve to its potential. However, now it is far more easy for brands to effectively communicate. So in email, you need to ensure that you have quality database, you don't spam, because if you spam, then there are rules which can blacklist your IPs and so on. So largely, email communication is divided into two: transactional emails, which are taking some kind of transactional information to the consumer. For example, your bank statement, or when you book a ticket on a travel website, your ticket comes over email. So that is transactional. And then there is another big use, which is to generate leads. People use email marketing. Now, email marketing is where things can go a little bit tricky. So essentially, there is a science and art in how you do that. All of that, I think brand managers are learning. There are companies like us which help and educate the brand managers to effectively use the medium.
Correct. So Vishwadeep, you spoke about companies not having email IDs to begin with, and that's something that they're working on, which brings me to my next question, which is that, there is this huge uproar about cookieless world coming in and third-party data becoming obsolete, and all brands are kind of scrambling to build that first-party data. And then it's also a question of quality versus quantity,
Sure.
mind versus math. Uh, so when it comes to brands building their first-party data, mining it for insights, what would your advice be to them? First, how should they build this data, and what kind of insight should they kind of use it for?
Yeah, so I think to build the data, every touch point, whenever the consumer is interacting with the brand, any touch point gives an opportunity to capture something new about the consumer. So at any touch point, whether it's a visit in the brick and mortar store or a visit to the website or some kind of form which the consumer is filling, or when they're buying some product, then you can entice the consumer that, look, I can send your invoice by email, and that gives you the opportunity, for example, to collect the email address. So there are many such opportunities which exist, which must be leveraged. And I think it should all begin with what is the intent behind capturing the first party data. So clearly, if you have the right data, clean data with opt-in and consent of the consumer, then you are actually making an effective communication. So ROI on your communication then is really wonderful, because even if you do not care so much about ROI, spray and pray, but there are also regulatory reasons why you should have opt-ins. For example, on the SMS side of things, there is TRAI guidelines which insist that you should have consent for particular kind of messaging. So there are many reasons why this needs to be built, and once it is built, it needs to be maintained. So there is an ongoing maintenance, because people change their details, people move homes, people change their mobile phones, people open new email addresses, and so on and so forth. So it needs to be maintained also pretty well. And more important is that you link it with your marketing effort. For example, if you are tracking the consumer journey, then you need to use that in conjunction with the first party data to be able to create a great communication. Let's say you are running a campaign, so your campaign should bear in mind where the consumer would like to receive the communication. For example, is email the right channel for the consumer, or is it SMS, or it's actually WhatsApp? So depending on how you have mined the data, and then on your campaign's objective, you need to marry all this information in the right way.
Absolutely. So, again, the right messaging at the right time is important, and the kind and in the way in which the consumer wants to be spoken to, be it email, be it SMS, be it voice, be it WhatsApp, we don't know. And, that's an important part of data mining, which honestly quite a lot of brands overlook as of today. Which brings me to my next question is, you spoke a bit about personalized messaging and personalized marketing, and it's becoming again increasingly difficult for brands to do this with the cookieless world, no third-party data. How important is this? How are brands working with you to do this kind of personalization, and how important is it really important to do personalized, customized messaging per individual? How are you guys managing this?
Yeah, so essentially it all begins from the data you hold about the consumer. Let's say you're a bank. Now, as a bank, you provide, say, saving accounts, you provide personal loans, you provide credit cards, you provide multiple products. So the customer can be sitting across multiple databases. For the same bank, let's say the CMO wants to have an effective communication with the consumer of the bank, then clearly it is very important to know that this particular consumer is, say, buying what all kinds of products. Now, if the databases are disparate and you are using one database to create a campaign, then you can miss out on you know, in fact, instead of making the customer happy, you could actually annoy him. For example, if I already have a credit card and from the same bank who is trying to sell me a credit card, then obviously as a consumer, I would wonder what is going on here. So it is very important that the disparate data is somehow unified to give a unified view to the marketeer. So the journey starts there. So you need to be able to collate the data across different databases. Then you need to see what is really relevant for the consumer. So that, of course, you need to employ multiple tools. These days, AI is becoming very important. You can do some kind of predictive insights into if this consumer has done XYZ things in the past, then he is likely to do this. So on the basis of some kind of predictive insights through software tools, once you establish that, yes, this particular consumer is the right candidate for this communication, then you create the campaign. And within the campaign also, you typically tend to do A/B testing, that, okay, this communication is going to work or not, and then accordingly run the full-blown program. So you just don't start randomly. There is a lot of hard work which needs to go in before effective communication can be created.
I couldn't agree more with you there. And we've all, that credit card example was absolutely pertinent. I got one call today also.
Yes.
And we all know how that feels. So, communication, and one of the most important trends is the D2C industry. That's a direct to consumer industry that's, taking shape in India today. And almost every week we have a new unicorn in this field, and someone getting, funded, or some new piece of technology or new products coming into the market. And the most important piece of the D2C industry that I see is the fact that, here are these brands who are directly speaking to the end consumer and not just being seen in a retail store, right? So e-commerce, yes, is important, but the communication that they build, the personal one-to-one interaction that they build with their end consumer is the most important piece here. What is your take on this? Where is this headed? And one, where is D2C headed? And the other is there are so many brands out there, our legacy brands, some of them are still in non-D2C mode, and it looks like they can't afford to be there for long. So what would be your advice to those people?
Yes, in fact, this is something which we have seen in the last 2 to 3 years change very, very rapidly. And post-COVID era, the momentum on D2C has just really gone to the next level. It is exponential growth, because what we are seeing now is, as a Cpaas provider, we are helping so many D2C companies engage with their consumers, and it is actually they're completing the entire transaction right from, for example, sending, say, one SMS, which may have a link of some kind of, say, chatbot conversation to open up. And then once the consumer clicks on this link within the SMS, the chatbot opens up. Within that, then the D2C company can present the catalog. Okay, these are my 5 products. Which one would you like to buy? And then if the consumer selects something, then there is integration with some kind of payment gateway, UPI, this, that, every option is now there. So consumer can make the payment through mode of his choice. And then there is partnerships with delivery companies, which there are many now in the country, who then actually deliver the product. So the complete from like initial communication to closure of the transaction, including the collection of money, as well as triggering the delivery, everything is seamlessly happening through technology. So this is just wonderful. And I think post-COVID, this is pretty much every household would have experienced this in the COVID lockdown period. And hence it is now scaling, because now, even though the stores have opened, the malls have opened, but people have now a new habit. Their behavior has already changed forever. So I think, first of all, where the industry is headed, I think it is the way how consumers will like to talk to their brands, because they can do it at the convenience of their home. They can be sitting on the sofa and they can be using their own device. They can do it in the night, they can do it in the morning, whenever they want. So essentially, it changes so many things for the consumer because it is consumer friendly. And if you see, because there are no middlemen, no distributors, no retailers in that sense, so it is of course very efficient for the brand also. So everybody is a winner. So this new model is going to stay. And I think you rightly pointed out, a lot of old FMCG companies, a lot of old brands will look to adopting D2C in addition to what they may be doing in their typical brick and mortar distribution led customer consumer outreach. So this is going to stay, and old brands, legacy brands will also move. They have no choice.
Absolutely, yeah. They actually, they stand no chance with
Yes.
the new D2C players out there. In fact, I have been talking, officially I've been talking to a lot of D2C players, yes, but also as a consumer, I start chatting with D2C, companies, and a lot of times, people who are answering my queries on a WhatsApp chat is usually the founder of the company.
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
I really want to ask them, how do you plan to scale this? If you're sitting and chatting with your consumer 1:1, which is great, love it. How do you plan to chat, scale this? I think the only way they can scale this is technology, is artificial intelligence, is chatbots. Chatbots probably that feel so real that it doesn't look like it's not a human being on the other
Yes,
side.
indeed. Yeah.
Right? Can you tell us a little more about that, and how this piece is evolving, and how easy or difficult is it for a brand to really adopt a chatbot?
So I think chatbots, for example, as ValueFirst, we built our chatbot about 4.5 years ago. Now, in the last 4 years, it is one of our hottest selling products.
Absolutely.
And it is clear that this is the way to go, because a chatbot can be used for lead generation. It can be used for customer service, the example you gave, or it could also be used for actually doing the complete commerce, what is called as conversational commerce. So a chatbot can pretty much do everything. And even if you do not want to use it for the entire business process, right from lead generation to say customer service, you can use it for pieces of your business. For example, let's say you want to do KYC of your customer. Now, through a chatbot, you can collect all the documents of the consumer. They can upload in a conversation their Aadhaar card, their PAN card, and they can even do a video KYC. You can have their consent with the video, which can be recorded and saved by the chatbot. So all of that. So basically, you can see a chatbot is able to participate in almost all facets of a business transaction. So that is why I think it is very important for a brand to look at it very seriously. Now, from our experience, what we have seen is that the decision to adopt chatbot is not a problem, but how to effectively use is little bit of a tricky matter, because, for example, what language should the chatbot talk in? And also, should it be frivolous, like, hey, customer, how are you? Or it should be serious, dear customer, and not very slangish. So the brand has to, depending on their own image, have to marry the communication which the chatbot is doing on behalf of the brand, or like a machine, or in an automated way. So all those scripting, all that scripting of the conversation needs to be well crafted. So that is one. So that takes some serious effort. And also, whether to use AI or use a structured bot without AI, that call needs to be taken. So it depends on the industry. For example, if you are some of the AI engines are very well developed now for banking, but if it is a education industry, AI is not yet there. So depending on which vertical you operate in, the AI capabilities which chatbots now possess is different. So you need to accordingly choose, and then you may not want to choose AI in all of the communication. There are very simple communication use cases where you can create very effective, structured, predictable flows of conversation. For example, if you are only asking questions and expecting a response, then of course you can do it without AI. But if you want to capture the intent of the consumer, you do not know what the consumer may say. He may type in that I want to fly to this destination, or may say book ticket. So then the chatbot should be able to exactly capture the intent in the right way. So you need to experiment a bit and see how for your particular industry AI driven chatbot can be deployed. So there will be some experiment, and you do need to do POCs, a little bit of prototypes, and then go full scale. So essentially there is a bit of creative thinking as well as piloting which needs to happen for a full scale chatbot based business to happen.
Correct. So chatbot is typically a lot of trial and error. So right from how I want my brand to sound, what is my sound item, what is my language, or I would say, conversational identity
Yes.
of a brand, to, how much of a, do I want a chatbot which is press 1, press 2, press 3, or do I want a chatbot which will actually talk to my consumer the way I talk to them? So I think quite a few couple of tough decisions and a lot of trial and error involved before you hit the perfect mix. So I think it's a learning journey. AIs are constantly learning just like we are. Yeah. So important and good stuff coming up. So Vish, you've been working with a lot of brands, right? And you've given some fantastic examples already. Can you share some case studies or, some bits about your journey with brands, what they've achieved using your platform, things like that?
Yes. So I will give one example. So there is a personal loans company. They were sending SMSs as a marketing SMS to the consumer that, hey, this is a very interesting offer, low rate of interest, and your CIBIL score is good, your loan is already approved. So the SMS is very exciting already. So when the consumer gets it, then you would expect that if he has some financial need, he will probably opt for it. So what we noticed that they were getting a certain conversion ratio, which means their marketing campaign on SMS was working because they continued to invest on a regular SMS-based marketing campaigns. And then one of the marketing leaders there decided to experiment with chatbot. So what they did is they continued with the same SMS, but within the SMS, they put the link for a conversation to happen, saying that click here if you're looking to get a loan. There is a pre-approved loan waiting for you. So the consumer would click, and then the conversation would start with the display of the products and a lot more information which SMS could not carry as a medium. So suddenly their conversion rates became 10x, 12x, I do not exactly remember, but many times growth. So their sales of their personal loan products jumped many-fold. And I think it's a great testimony how a consumer, when he's contacted and also given the option to communicate in the right way, how they can participate in your programs. For example, it is definitely clear from this, interactivity or a conversation is far more effective than one-sided communication.
The moment you allow the consumer to speak back to the brand, that is the moment the deal is cracked, right?
Yes.
That is the moment where because otherwise everything hinged on that 1%, 2%, 3% value that you were giving, and and the pre-approved there were no other highlights to that SMS, but the moment you ask the consumer to tell them what they need, and everyone wants to be heard. I mean, that's just human behavior. Everyone wants to be heard. The moment brands are willing to do that, the consumer is surely coming back, flocking to you. So thank you so much, Vish. This was a wonderful conversation, and very good insights into how brands can further evolve their communication strategy. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes, thank you so much for hosting me.